But obviously we have Paul. Paul stayed with us. You know, he is now a relic, and he is still with us. So I feel like that's the kind of, that I need to collect him up, get him to Mars, and have him buried on Mars.
Welcome to the OnScript podcast, your home for world-class conversations on scripture and theology, where you get to meet some of the best in the field. Visit us at onscript.study. Say hello on Twitter at OnScriptPodcast and stop by our Facebook page at facebook.com/OnScript.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the OnScript podcast. This is Matt Lynch. I'm a co-host of OnScript along with Matt Bates, Drew Johnson, Aaron Heim, Chris Tilling, and Amy Brown Hughes. Thanks so much for tuning in to this very special episode. We have a guest coming on today who's been on the show 3 other times, each time around this time of year. So he's back today, giving us some brilliant insights into the nature of Paul's Theology of Universalism. So I think you'll enjoy that. And thank you for tuning in on this episode, and we hope you enjoyed the podcast. Thanks. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to OnScript. Our guest today needs no introduction. Professor Ervine Sheblatzm is the author of numerous books, including Paul, Multiverse Theory, and the Journey of the Inner Soul, Fault Lines in the Horizon, Paul's Dawning Age Marches On, Feathers on the Nose, Paul's Radical Pastoral Theology for the Non-Anthropic World. And he's here today to talk about his latest book, which I've been sent a copy of and doesn't yet have a title, but we'll be discussing that, as well as another book that he's worked on Pauline theology and universalism. Professor Sheblazm has PhDs in theology and physics and holds a distinguished chair in theology and physics at the Center for Excellence that he runs in the Lake District in the UK. Professor Sheblazm, this is your 4th time on the show. Welcome back.
Welcome back, Matthew. You know what they say, 4th time's a charm. I'm pleased to be back. You know, I tell my friends often that I have a regular slot with the 238th most popular theological podcast in the UK, and I can feel their envy through their skin. I'm going to be honest with you. It is a highlight of my year. Well, obviously, sorry, Jesus' birthday is a highlight of my year, and Jesus is being risen again is my 2nd highlight of the year, and this is my 3rd. So, you know, you don't ever have to welcome me back. It's like coming home.
Well, it's really great to have you, and I know listeners have really appreciated your work, and a lot of readers have as well. So we're a year into the pandemic, and I'm just wondering if you could update our listeners on what you've been up to. How has the pandemic affected your work? At the Center for Excellence, what sorts of projects have you been involved in? Yeah, just, give us an update.
Thank you, Matthew. Yes. What a year, what a year. I think, I don't know what it's been like out there in the North America, but we've gone lockdown, which I think is, needs must. I was able to bubble with Dave. So Dave wanted to bubble with his mum because she's old, but I was like, my research can't grind to a halt because you want to look after your mum. So in the end, he came and bubbled with me. I don't know whether you've got that expression in America, the bubble. It's like forming a pairing within a group. So me and Dave have bubbled together. So for me right now, let me tell you a story. For me right now, the cradle of theological thought is in America right now. From that northern border to that southern border, that is where the cradle of theology is right now. You're over there. You're inside that world, and
actually,
so
I'm in Canada. Yeah,
Canada.
Yeah. Oh. Mm-hmm. Go on though. Your point.
So yeah, my point was that okay. Well, America and where you are, Matt. Wherever you are, I feel you stretch the borders of America and take it around you so that you can be included in that cradle of theological thought. So what I thought do you know what I thought? When you've got the cradle of theological thought, do you know what it needs?
What's that?
Sheblazm.
Yeah.
It needs some Sheblazm. Yeah. So, like in the Bible, David, had a dream, and, an angel appeared to him in that dream and told him stuff. I didn't have a dream, but I had a thought. And my thought was that I need to be in that cradle. I need to climb into that cradle and be in it. So I read that all Americans have pool houses, and they let their friends live in it, basically. Or your pool boy. Do you have a pool boy, Matt? Pool house.
No, I don't have one.
Oh, I thought all Americans have pool houses.
I mean, some people that have pools will have a pool house. So,
Okay.
On that front.
Because you're a world-leading theologian, I assumed you would have a pool house. So my plan was me and Dave, to come over and live with you for an indefinite period of time in your pool house. This can't happen now, Matt.
What's that?
I can't come to America.
Right, because of the pandemic.
No.
That's a shame.
Not the pandemic. Now, I understand if you need time off from the podcast right now to cope with that news. Are you all right to continue?
We could take a break if you want.
No, I'm fine. It's
Okay.
for you.
Okay.
I've just broken the news that I can't come and live in your pool house.
It is disappointing, but we can carry on.
Right. The key element of this, as you can imagine, this plan was Paul. And because Paul got taken away from me and he got sent to a goat recovery sanctuary, I thought I need to deal with these problems I have in my life theologically.
So the restraining order is still in effect, I assume.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I don't think God would want that to be in place. So, I think, and again, I think your listeners probably want to deal with big issues in their life with theological pathways. So one day you might want to deal with things in a Paul-like way, or a Moses-like way, or a Jason the Technicolor Dreamcoat type way. Whatever way you want to, there's a theology for each of these characters, these amazing characters in the Bible. I just felt the theology of Jonah was the first step in this phase. What I really needed, was to get Paul out. Paul needed to be part of my journey across the States. That was high risk, but I felt Jonah was the way to do this. So I am the whale. I will take Paul, not inside me, but in my arms as the whale, to a new land. Okay. So the plan, I actually called it Operation Get My Goat Back, because I felt like that's what you do in times of real strife. You need to give it a good, strong title.
Yeah, and for listeners who aren't familiar with the backstory here, Professor Sheblazm had been doing pretty cutting-edge experiments with goats in the UK, and one particular neighbor misunderstood what was happening, and the RSPCA took away the goat, and now there's Professor Sheblazm is not able to be with his goat, Paul.
Yeah, I'm not allowed within 100 feet of any hooved animal. That's what it says on the piece of paper they gave me. Anyway, I needed him back, so I actually was going to jailbreak him out. Now, I know this being my mea culpa. I needed to people to understand I've done something bad, but it's for a good. And I wanted to set the scene. And I mean, you think podcasts are good, don't you? Let's be honest though, they're not that great because they're not TV shows. So your listeners can't see us, can they? So,
no.
It's, I understand what
it has its advantages though, because they can walk and drive and listen.
Yeah, but I still feel like a podcast is like going into a cinema with your eyes closed. I think there's anyway, let's not get into the pros and cons of podcasting. So I wanted to set the scene slightly. So I wrote a poem.
Oh, wow. Would you like to share that?
Yes. So what I'll do, Matt, is I'll say the word scene to let you know it's starting, and then scene when it ends. Okay? So if your listeners want to listen up. Paul is trapped. This isn't the poem, sorry, I haven't said scene yet. Paul is trapped on a sanctuary near my house. Okay, so that's the sort of setup for the scene. Scene. Verse 1. I snuck in like a cat, creeping up on a bat. Dave on lookout, wearing a hat. Paul was in a field, looking quite fat. Verse 2. I crawled along next to a gate. I spotted Paul the goat next to a gate. Gosh, he had put on weight. I had to move before it was too late. Up I stood. It was time to seal our fate. Scene. Okay? That's where I was. I'm in the field. I'm ready to go. I found him. I looked him straight in the eye. He looked me straight in the eyes. I reached out my arms.
That must have been a powerful moment.
Yes. I reached out my arms and I said, how am I going to get him to follow me? Jesus. the greatest example of following, isn't it? So I used a Christology theology, and I said, put down that grass and come follow me.
So what happened then?
He ran off bleating.
Oh.
He was bleating so loud, the old lady came out the house.
Oh, goodness.
And she said unto me, clear off, you loon, you're scaring the goats. And I just think some people just don't understand. You know, but anyway, that I dabbled in Christology, in some Christology theology, and it's not served me well. So at that point, I was like, who else in the Bible what theology can I find to get both this lady to give me a goat and get out? And I thought, who's good at getting out of places? Moses. So I went with a Mosical theology at that point. And I stood there, and I noticed next to me was a bush. And I thought, that's a sign.
Uncanny.
That is uncanny. So I set fire to the bush, and I stood in front of the bush while it was on fire, and I put out my arms, and I said, let my goat go, that he may come with me to America.
How did that work?
I was arrested for arson, breach of the peace, and breaking a restraining order.
That seems unfair.
You know what, man? You've probably done experiments similar to this with theology. You just try your hardest sometimes to align simple ideas of theology, and they just don't seem to marry up. But anyway, I've got to share the news that is why I can't come to America and live in your pool house. I now have a criminal record, which means that the American embassy in London said that I am not an appropriate person to be coming to America. Now, I explained to the lady, Mandy her name was, very, very nice lady, but gosh, I tried to explain to her what I was achieving, what I was trying to do, and I was asked to leave. So that was my experience so far. And you know what? The thought, it's just getting to me now. The thought of what we could have done together as a team if I'd have moved to the States. I'm sorry, man, I'm gonna have to take a break. Is that okay?
It's fine.
Just for a minute.
Just take half hour.
Just a minute. And I'll be back.
Okay, so coming off that break, let's talk about your book that you sent me. This book does not yet have a title. It's your fourth book, I believe. Yeah, I'm just curious what you were hoping to achieve there. The copy I had that you sent me, just so the listeners know, was highly, a lot of sections were blacked out, so I couldn't read all of it. But the bits I did pick up were interesting, but hard to put together because of the elements that were blacked out. So why don't you just give our listeners a sense of what this book is, what you're arguing, and kind of your primary thesis.
Back again. Sheblatzm's back. Back again. Hi, Matt. I'm back. I've gone and had myself what I like to call the clear thinker. I don't drink alcohol, so it's not a cocktail, don't worry. It is, biblical number, Matt, is 7. Yeah, 7 espressos, 1 cup, boom.
Yeah.
7 espressos, 1 cup, boom. Clear thinker, wow. Now, clear thinker. Yeah. No worries. What was your question?
So the question was, what is it that you were trying to argue in this fourth book?
Yes.
Large sections of it.
This book. Yes. Right. This book. We had... yes. Sales are down. Yes, we need to talk about this. So, I've changed tack. I appreciate what you're doing for me. I appreciate this podcast. I appreciate all you listeners out there. Howdy doody. The thing I appreciate most is book sales, let's be honest. And I felt partnering up with you guys would give me a real big bump in sales. I haven't seen that. So what I felt I was giving too much away. Too much of the candy was getting given out in this podcast. And so I felt, you know what Sheblazm needs? He needs to be aloof. And so I've gone for an aloof marketing approach. So my marketing strategy at the moment is to be aloof.
Right. I suppose the final copy will not be as redacted as the copy you sent me.
Yes. CIA. I read about the CIA. And do you know what they do? When they want to keep things hidden, they redact things. What I don't know whether just to explain that to you and your listeners, is you get a big thick pen and you just cross stuff out. So I thought to myself, if I redact my book, if I take all the real gems out of the book, well, no, keep them in, but draw over them with a permanent marker, then there won't be any nuggets to give away. So if you manage, it's like gold panning. If you're panning for nuggets and there are no nuggets in your pan, you're nuggetless. So I'm going to give this book out to you nuggetless, and then we can't lose any nuggets.
Yeah, and there was a section on the back that said, so like it had a sort of price tier system where certain tiers had less redacted. Just for the sake of our listeners, would you say that some of the lowest, like if someone orders the low tier, which I think was $19.95 or something like that, and it's still pretty redacted, would they be able to get the sense of the argument from that? Or would they need to purchase one of the higher tiers?
Sometimes people say, and I wouldn't say this, but sometimes people would say that charity is overrated. And, giving stuff away is not always the best solution. So what I'll do is if you buy the book in 1995, about 50% of the book is redacted. So what I will do is if you then send me another, or the publisher, I haven't quite worked out how it's going to work yet, but if I get more money from you, I will send you the pieces cut out. So you'll get like a bag full of sentences that I've cut out of an original copy. You'll then open your book and then you'll stick them on top of the redacted permanent marker. Hence, it's like theology coming to life right there and then.
Yeah, that's it sounds like a lot of work, but I'm sure it's worth it given the content we've had in the past. There was one sentence actually that intrigued me from the book that was not edited, redacted. You said that one of the goals you have with... You're right there. One of the goals you...
Did I not mute? Sorry.
So one of the goals you have with the book is to develop, and it was blacked out, but a certain kind of theology, quote, faster than any other outfit. What does it mean to produce theology faster than any other outfit, and why would that be desirable?
Do you know what I'd say, Matt? Do you know what I'd say to that? It's a good question, by the way. I do feel like you're developing as a podcast host. I don't think you're the best podcast host on OnScript, but I think you're getting there. I wouldn't create like a tier of who's the best and stuff, but I feel like, because I don't want that's embarrassing. That's awkward, isn't it? But I feel you're kind of bottom of the top half, top of the bottom half, I'd say. So so you should be proud of that. But I think you're getting better. That's a good question. What was the question?
Well, I was asking about the section where you talk about developing.
Yep. What was the question?
So you talked about developing theology faster than any other outfit. And I was just curious what you meant by developing fast theology and why that would be desirable.
What I would say to that, Matthew, theology moves fast. You think how fast and how much change has occurred in the last 2,000 years. From you take the Sermon on the Mount and look how much that's changed from the day Jesus spoke it to today. It's like lightning. So I think, so I've come up with the concept of, that I unpack in the book. Well, it depends on how much you pay, but you at the end of the day, pay full whack, you get full whack. An example of that is theo-zooming. So this is something I've come up with during the pandemic to help play my part, processing and getting theological questions done quickly. You can't do big questions. So, you've got to actually deal with tiny questions. So, I think, and so for example, a huge question would be, what impact does modernistic culture have on traditional Pauline theology? Right, that's a chunky question.
Sure, that's a big question.
We can sit here on a podcast for hours just wrestling around. A tiny question that is dealt with in a theo-zooming context is something like, why Pauline theology? Question mark.
So what you're trying to do at the Center for Excellence then is to take smaller questions. Is it you're breaking down bigger questions into smaller questions, or are you actually just
No, it's just small questions, just tiny questions, just tiny theological questions.
And then the goal is to address them quickly. Why is that a desirable goal?
Just gone. Well, it's to combat the perceived, shall we say, glacial movement which can occur within some theological circles. You just need to be like, why use 1,000 words to explain a hugely complex, and my theological work is an A4 sheet, and if you can't read that and be have impacted for your entire life from reading my A4 sheet of thoughts, I'm going wrong. You know?
Yeah, so you had talked about you've got another book actually that beyond the redacted volume that you've just published, and you were going to share with our listeners the name of this book and some of your primary arguments. So why don't we shift to that now?
So the name of the book is Pauline Theology: The Final Frontier. Paul must finish his journey.
And what's
need I for your listeners' benefit? Need I say more?
Right. No, but yes. So I'm curious. In the portion of that book that you sent me, you suggested that, quote, interstellar Pauline theology is a massive gap in biblical theology.
Huge. Huge. I wouldn't say massive. I'd say huge.
You said, however, and here you sort of refer to yourself in the third person. You say, for Dr. Sheblazm, it's a wormhole. So there's this massive gap in biblical, or huge gap in biblical theology, but for you, it's a wormhole. So in what ways is interstellar Pauline theology a wormhole? What does it, what do those concepts mean?
Well, I try to keep at the forefront, like yourself, I try to keep at the forefront of what's going on in theology right now. And universalism, as I like to call it, is really within Pauline theology. It's kind of a tasty morsel, as we say in the theological world.
It's a big discussion right now. I mean, just for our listeners, universalism, tracing the idea of potential universal salvation or the extension of the gospel to the Gentiles.
Sorry,
so, yeah.
No. Universalism. You're talking about is not what universalism is.
So how are you using the term?
Well, so it's not how I'm using the term; it's how we collectively are using the term. I think you've probably read been on a website and read that. That's not quite right. So let me explain.
It could very well be. I'm an Old Testament scholar, so I'm sometimes out of these discussions.
You've been on Wikipedia again, haven't you? So universalism, you've got to break it into two parts: the ism and the universe. So what people are wrestling with is, where does Paul and Pauline theology fit into the universe? Just because he ended up in Rome, that wasn't the end of his journey. So I have taken upon myself to finish that journey by exploring, no pun intended, well, it was intended, but the universalism is, he must finish his journey. What we need is a modern day Paul. We could sit with him and ask him stuff, couldn't we? We haven't got that. So I thought, what's the closest we can get to that? So I thought there's three parts to this. There's the historical Paul, the modern Paul, and the future Paul. Okay? So do you get that?
That's
is that complicated? Is that complicated, or do you get that?
I think I get...
Because I feel like if you can get it, your listeners can get it.
It's a helpful typology because, as Christians, we wouldn't want Paul as a biblical writer and character from the Bible to just remain in the past, but to be continually relevant for us and for future generations.
Yeah. My feeling about that is that his writings aren't that impactful, though. So kind of like, we need to do something. We need to move on from that, and we need to do the next phase. So you've got historical Paul, you've got modern Paul, you've got future Paul. So I couldn't find a modern day Paul.
What do you mean by that?
I couldn't find somebody alive right now who I felt could be Paul. And I think that's a sorry state of affairs. Probably a big reflection on our postmodernistic society, but let's not go into that. That's another podcast, maybe. Or maybe that's a podcast that we could just do every week, just me and you. But let's let that settle, and let's see how we feel about that. But I did find one.
You found what?
I found the future Paul. Huh. Do you want a clue?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's interesting.
Are you ready for the clue? I think you'll get this. You ready?
Yeah.
To boldly go where no man's gone before.
That's
Who's that?
That sounds a little Trekkie to me.
James T, capital T, Kirk. I'm sure some of your people listening know who that is.
Yep. Some of our listeners might be dressed up as him right now.
I wouldn't have said that. That's fine for you to say. James T. Kirk. Let's just think about that for a second, okay? He starts off on Earth, and he goes on a voyage. Who else went on a voyage? Right, Matt, I need you to work. Sorry, I need you to work with me a bit on this. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm trying to make it a bit more interactive. I don't want to come here just.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Well, I mean, given the title of the book, probably Paul.
Fine. Great. Mm-hmm. Let's do it. Let's have take two. So, Matt, James T. Kirk. He went on a voyage. Who else went on a voyage? Paul. Yes. Well done. So we'll make a scholar of you yet. So Paul, James T. Kirk, indistinguishable. One in the history, one in the future. Okay?
We could take that. So how does this relate to the future Paul?
Well, I don't want to be rude, but I feel like your listeners probably get it. And it's probably you that's struggling with the concept. But I'm very happy. If you've understood what I'm getting at, listeners, just chill, go make a coffee for a minute, and I'm going to unpack it for Matt. So, James T. Kirk went on a voyage. Paul went on a voyage. Paul didn't finish his voyage. Universalism is about him being part of the universe. So he stopped in Rome, but I feel like it was cut short. And I feel like Rome was the final, he needed to blast off from Rome and go on. So I feel desperately clear that I really want to think seriously about if I can continue his journey. So I got a piece of string and I bought one of those inflatable globes. You can get them from shops for kids. I got a big one. It was a beach ball size one. And I got a piece of string and I stuck it on the world through his journey. And I got the piece of string and I hung all the planets up in my bedroom. And I got the piece of string and I pulled it out from the Earth. And do you know what it hit?
What?
Mars. It hit Mars. And I just felt, is that where he's supposed to be? He's supposed to be on Mars. I'm now a convert to Muskism.
What's Muskism?
You've got this young fella over in America.
Elon Musk.
Yeah, that's the fella. And he's going to the Mars. So I was wondering if I could use one of his Tesla rockets to get to Mars. So this is the book. Some may say it's a new Dan Brown. I wouldn't, but it's a kind of a theological and anthropological based around this idea that Paul needs to finish his journey.
You signaled a turn in your book toward Pauline archaeology, and you said that the field of Pauline studies needs to sort of make a turn toward Pauline archaeology, and that you've taken that turn. And so what are some of the places that's leading you? How does this relate to the future Paul and getting Paul to Mars?
Yes, so I can't obviously take, I know all your listeners know this, but I can't obviously take Paul to Mars. But obviously we have Paul. Paul stayed with us. He is now a relic. And he is still with us. So I feel like that's the kind of that I need to collect him up, get him to Mars, and have him buried on Mars. That's really what I feel.
Right. So the relics of Paul, which are, I don't even know where they're supposedly held. I mean, is it? Do you find that there's conclusive evidence that it's actually the historical Paul? I mean, because a lot of these are dubious in terms of their historicity. Yeah.
So I've been emailing people, and it's not conclusive. Let's say. So I was back on the internet, back on Google, and I Googled how to prove something, and you need evidence. So for me, the thing that I've discovered is when you get bones and you get relics, you need to have dental records. So what I thought would be what I'm trying to get is the historical dental records of Paul. So I've been emailing around experts in this, and to be honest, and again, I just want to be delicate with this in these kind of delicate times. Don't want to go down a wormhole or rabbit hole, whichever suits you best. I have been asking people for these dental records, and everybody has come back to me saying they don't exist. But
so what's that tell you?
Well, I don't want to use this word, but I will. It's a conspiracy. It's a conspiracy of silence.
Right. If they're all saying no,
if everyone's saying no, it's a bit dubious, something. Isn't it? So, and it's obvious. Where there are teeth, there are dental records. Why would you not have dental records?
I suppose some people might be wondering about whether they kept dental records in antiquity.
Yeah, they're probably in clay or something. They're probably like, bite down on this piece of clay and, that's your record. So, yeah, they probably didn't have x-rays. So, yeah, so it's probably some clay tablet somewhere with Paul's bite mark in it. And, if I can get hold of that, because you're an Old Testament scholar, there are clay tablets everywhere, all over the Near East and the Far East and the Southeast and the Northeast and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if I could just cut you off for a moment, one of the things you said as a precondition for coming on the show was that I make some sort of comment to our listeners that if anyone has information about the location of Paul's dental records, that they should contact you. And I suppose they can just go onto the Center for Excellence website.
Yep, Center of Excellence website. It's Center of Excellence website, uk.co.theology. / provide details of where Paul's dental records are / submit. So if you go there, there's a form to register. So if you register all your details on there, you'll then be emailed a link to a Dropbox, and then you can Dropbox me any evidence you have. Any tips would be muchly appreciated. Sure.
So your goal then is to get the dental records. I suppose you also right. I suppose you also need Paul's teeth.
Yes, but I'll have his teeth if I can get his relics together. I can then marry them up, prove it's Paul, and then we can get to we can get hold of Mr. Musk and see if we can get on his rocket to the Mars. That's what I'm feeling. So there are two issues. I'm going again, Mia Golba. We need to be clear that in the Trinity, me. Not the biblical Trinity, the Center of Excellence Trinity, which is me, Dave, and Paul the goat. Dave gets motion sickness, and I'm afraid of heights. So neither of us can go. So it's kind of down to Paul to go. I don't trust anybody else. That was a dilemma for me, as you can imagine.
Sure, because and this takes you back to wanting to get Paul out of England.
So I was going to get to the US, stay with you in your pool house, get in touch with Elon Musk, get his rocket, and I have been corresponding with him regularly so far.
With whom? Elon Musk?
Mr. Musk.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That seems like a very busy person.
Yeah, he's not got back to me yet. So he's not got back to me, but I have been corresponding with him. So I think for me, it's I'm sort of shooting all these ideas at him, and I think what I imagine he's sitting there fueling his rockets. Filling them up at the gas station, and he's thinking about a good answer for it. So I thought,
just because he hasn't responded doesn't mean he's not.
Yeah. Just by the time my thing was, by the time I got over to America and got settled into your pool house, then I'm sure he got back to me by then. So in the meantime, I need that Muskism. I need some Muskism. I need a bit of Muskism. So one of the most famous quotes in the Bible is, "What would Jesus do?" WWJD. Okay? So my new mantra in that style is WWIDIIWAHOPAM. So I don't think I'll do wristbands yet. But I think
that's
it's
a long acronym. So what does that stand for?
What would I do if I was a hybrid of Paul and Musk? So what that is that's kind of taking both the Pauline view of the world, but the Muskism of innovation, all that kind of stuff. So by bringing those two together, I apply that. So I was in the mirror. I was looking in the mirror one day, and I was like, WWIDIIWAHOPAM, saying that to myself. And I was thinking, what's that going to? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And I just said, I got to just accept it. And I imagine you've been to conferences, and you stood up with your papers, and you've gone, deep breath. I'm going to share some crazy ideas. I am just going to put it out there. Roll it up,
feel that way.
Shimmy it up the flagpole. See you salutes. Chuck that idea out there. And so motion sickness for Dave. I'm scared of heights, so I can't go up in a rocket. It's down to Paul. So I think I'm gonna. I think I'm gonna see if. And again, this is not the first time animals have gone to space. You know that?
No, not at all. Dogs have been in space.
Dogs, monkeys,
chimps. Yeah.
So if they can train a chimp to fly, in a rocket with the controls and do all the kind of all the controls, like I seen Apollo 13. If you imagine 3 monkeys doing all that kind of like what the Tom Hanks did and stuff, they can train a monkey. They can train a goat. I know they've got no disposable thumbs, but I still feel goats can do certain things. If you make the controllers hoof shaped, they could go forwards and backwards and stuff. So maybe give them some hooks or something so he can hook on the controls. So it's a work in progress. Anyway, so I've created what I like to call the goat sack. So it's like a rucksack for goats. It's called the goat sack. I'm not sure whether to go on one of those shows where you ask for £1 million. You know what I mean? I've seen those on the telly. But anyway, it's big enough. So on one side, you've got relic space. So, in one side will be a full set of human bones.
Yeah, in the book, you go into a lot of detail about the dimensions of that, which I found interesting.
So it would be the one side would be big enough for a set of human bones, and on the other side would be snacks. So the goat could have snacks on the one side, and Pauline on the other side. So I think that's the proposal where we're at, and that's what the book is that journey, both the mental, spiritual, evolutionary journey that I've been on to get to this point. Now the book's not finished because I am, the final chapter is that journey. Part of me thinks, and again, it goes back to what I said earlier about charity being overrated. I think some people would say that if there's a flood and someone loses their house, they're all safe and well, but their material house gets swept away. People will throw money at them. Little website go up, here's money, buy yourself a new house, all that kind of stuff, be safe. And, if people are prepared to do that, a little bit of me wonders whether they'd be prepared to fund the goat sack. And the whole journey and the training and the kind of like the hooks that the goat would need to be able to use the controls. I wonder whether, because when I approached Musk and we come to some kind of a deal, me having backers, I think it's like a new phrase, investors and backers in this exploit would be quite
to it. If we could wrap up the discussion here, so you're imagining just to kind of like step back and think about what it is you're trying to accomplish. So you want to get Paul's relics, you want to load them onto a goat, you want to get that goat on a SpaceX rocket, you want to see that sent to Mars, you want to see Paul properly buried on Mars, as you put it in the book. Why does that matter?
Why does anything matter? Why does it matter? Why does food matter? Why does oxygen matter? Why does love matter? I think if you put food, oxygen, love, and a huge mission to Mars to bury Paul's relics under the surface, taken there by a goat, it's all the same.
Yeah. Well, Professor Sheblatzm, I think that's a great note to end on. I want to thank you so much for coming back on the show. I'm sure our listeners will be very engaged with you over the next year and anxious to hear an update on how this mission proceeds. So thank you so much for your time.
I absolutely hope that by next April, there will be more news on the mission to Mars. I'm not sure how long my denial of access to the US will take hold and be there. So we'll hopefully, we might be doing this in person in a cafe in downtown Vancouver.
Yeah, and we'll definitely be holding Paul the Goat in our hearts over the next year.
Yeah. I don't want to talk. Can we just not?
Yeah.
You've been listening to OnScript, delectable conversations on scripture and theology. If this episode has brought you inner peace or lit your biblical fire, please consider a small donation of just $2 or $5 per month. Information on how to donate can be found at onscript.study/donate.